You had your last cup of coffee at 3 in the afternoon, you fell asleep at a reasonable hour, and you woke up the next morning feeling groggy, unrested, and more exhausted than you expected. Most people blame stress, a busy mind, or they chalk it up to just not being a good sleeper. What almost no one suspects is the mug they set down 6 or 7 hours before bed. But the science is clear. Caffeine is disrupting far more sleep than most people realize. And the most unsettling part? You often cannot feel it happening. In this video, we are going to break down exactly how caffeine affects your sleep, at the biological level, why timing matters far more than you think, and what the latest research says about when your last cup of the day should actually be. Before we begin, a quick but important note. This video is for general health education. It is not medical advice. Please speak with your healthcare provider before making significant changes to your diet or habits, especially if you have any underlying health conditions. I'm glad you're here. Let's get into it. To understand why caffeine disrupts sleep, you first need to understand a chemical called adenosine. Adenosine is a byproduct of brain activity. Every hour that you are awake, it builds up in your brain, and as it accumulates, it creates what researchers call sleep pressure. The more adenosine you have, the sleepier you feel. This is not a weakness. This is biology. Your body is sending you a clear, well-designed signal. It is time to rest. Now, here is what caffeine actually does. It does not reduce adenosine. It does not eliminate fatigue. What it does is block the receptors that adenosine normally binds to. Caffeine molecules slip in first and hold those spots, like someone putting a do not disturb sign on a door that adenosine needs to open. You feel alert. But the adenosine is still there, waiting. The sleep pressure has not gone away. It has just been temporarily masked. And once caffeine clears those receptors, adenosine floods in all at once. That sudden, crashing fatigue many people feel in the afternoon, that is adenosine reclaiming its territory. Here is where sleep becomes the problem. Caffeine has what is called a half-life of approximately 5 to 6 hours in most healthy adults. Half-life means the time it takes your body to eliminate half of a given substance. So if you drink a standard cup of coffee, let's say 100 milligrams of caffeine, at 3 in the afternoon, roughly 50 milligrams is still circulating in your bloodstream at 9 o'clock that night. That is when most people are trying to wind down, get sleepy, and transition into deep sleep. And 50 milligrams is enough to keep those adenosine receptors partially blocked right when your brain is trying to do exactly what it needs to do. Most people think of sleep as a single, uniform state. You close your eyes, you're out, you wake up. But sleep is actually one of the most complex biological processes your body performs. It cycles through distinct stages, each with a specific job. There is light sleep, the transition phase where your body begins to slow down. There is deep sleep, also called slow-wave sleep, where the most intensive physical repair happens. Your body releases growth hormone, consolidates memories, and restores cellular energy. And there is REM sleep, rapid eye movement, where emotional processing and cognitive restoration take place. Caffeine disrupts multiple stages of this cycle, and this is not based on one study. It has been confirmed across dozens of clinical trials. A 2023 systematic review and meta-analysis, one of the most rigorous analyses of this topic ever published, synthesized the findings of 24 separate studies. The findings were consistent and significant. Caffeine reduced total sleep time by an average of 45 minutes. It lowered sleep efficiency, that is, the percentage of time in bed you were actually asleep, by 7%. It increased how long it took participants to fall asleep. And it measurably reduced slow-wave, deep sleep. The review recommended that caffeine intake should stop at least 8.8 hours before bedtime to avoid these measurable reductions in sleep quality. For someone with a 10 p.m. bedtime, that is no caffeine after approximately 1 in the afternoon. Deep sleep is the most vulnerable. And it matters more than most people realize. When caffeine suppresses slow-wave sleep, your body does not complete its full repair cycle. You might technically be in bed for 8 hours, but your body was running on a shortened maintenance window. You wake up, and you feel like you only slept 5. Not all caffeine consumption is equally disruptive. The impact on your sleep depends on two variables working together: how much caffeine you consumed and when you consumed it relative to your bedtime. Change either one of those and you change the outcome. A 2024 randomized crossover clinical trial published in the journal Sleep put this to a rigorous test. Researchers had participants consume either 100 milligrams or 400 milligrams of caffeine at 4 hours, 8 hours, or 12 hours before bedtime. Then they measured actual sleep using polysomnography, the gold standard of sleep science. The results were striking. At 400 milligrams, roughly 4 standard cups of coffee, caffeine caused significant sleep disruption even when taken 12 hours before bed, even half a day before sleep. The closer to bedtime, the worse the outcomes, but the dose mattered at every interval. Let's talk about what 400 milligrams actually looks like in a normal day, because it is easier to reach than most people think. A standard 8-ounce cup of brewed coffee contains approximately 95 to 120 milligrams of caffeine. One espresso shot is about 63 milligrams. A 16-ounce energy drink can contain 160 milligrams or more. Even a 12-ounce can of cola has 34 to 46 milligrams. So if you have a large coffee in the morning, a mid-morning latte, and an afternoon energy drink, you have already crossed 400 milligrams before 3 o'clock. Each of those increments extends the disruption window into your sleep. This is important to understand. It is not just about when you had your last cup. It is about the cumulative load your body has been processing all day. High total intake plus afternoon consumption is a compounding problem, not a single variable. And most people, genuinely, have no idea they are doing this. Here's the part that I want you to sit with for a moment, because this is where caffeine becomes genuinely deceptive. Most people assume that if they fall asleep without much trouble and they do not remember waking up during the night, their sleep was fine. If it felt okay, it was okay. That seems like a reasonable assumption. The research says otherwise. Multiple controlled studies have now demonstrated that people consistently and significantly underestimate how much caffeine has disrupted their sleep. Not slightly underestimate. Consistently and significantly. A landmark 2013 randomized controlled trial, conducted by Drake and colleagues and published in the Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine, tested exactly this. Participants received 400 milligrams of caffeine at 0, 3, or 6 hours before bedtime. Even at 6 hours before bed, caffeine caused significant, measurable reductions in sleep quality and total sleep time. But here is the finding that changed how sleep researchers think about this problem. Participants who took caffeine 6 hours before bed did not fully perceive how disturbed their sleep was. Their objective data, recorded by sleep study equipment, showed meaningful damage, but their subjective rating said things were relatively normal. This is not a small discrepancy. This is a systematic blind spot, and caffeine itself is part of the reason it exists. Because caffeine does not just block adenosine, it also suppresses your subjective awareness of sleepiness. You do not feel as tired as you actually are, which means when you wake up the next morning, your baseline sense of how tired you feel is already distorted. You feel like you slept adequately. The data says you did not. This is exactly why healthcare providers and sleep scientists emphasize objective measurement. Sleep diaries, wearable trackers. If you genuinely want to understand what caffeine is doing to your sleep, you need data, not feelings. I want to be honest with you. This is one of the most clinically important things in this entire video. If you have been telling yourself your sleep is fine and you regularly consume caffeine in the afternoon, that assessment may not be accurate. Not because you are wrong, because caffeine is designed, biologically, to make you feel that way. You deserve to know what is actually happening in your body while you sleep. There is one more layer to caffeine's impact on sleep that most people do not know about, and it may be the most far-reaching of all. Caffeine does not just affect how deeply you sleep on a given night, it interacts with your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm is your body's master biological clock. It governs your sleep-wake cycle, your core body temperature, your hormone release, including melatonin, your metabolism, and dozens of other functions. It is one of the most fundamental regulatory systems in the human body. A landmark 2015 randomized controlled trial, published in Science Translational Medicine by Burke and colleagues, tested what happens when you consume caffeine equivalent to a double espresso in the evening. The result, melatonin release, was delayed by approximately 40 minutes. Melatonin is the hormone your brain releases to signal that it is nighttime and that your body should begin preparing for sleep. Delaying that signal by 40 minutes means your body's entire sleep preparation process starts later. Your internal clock gets nudged in the wrong direction, and this is not a one-night phenomenon. Do this consistently, have an afternoon coffee every day, and over weeks and months, you are gradually shifting your biological sleep timing later and later, making it harder to fall asleep at your intended bedtime, making it harder to wake up at a reasonable hour, making your mornings harder. A 2021 double-blind randomized controlled trial by Weibel and colleagues found additional evidence of this. Regular daytime caffeine consumption, not evening caffeine, delays circadian REM sleep promotion. The biological timing of your REM sleep cycles was shifted by habitual caffeine use. In other words, caffeine does not just affect the night you drink it. It gradually, consistently, nudges your entire biological clock in the wrong direction. That is not a short-term problem. That is a lifestyle problem. Everything we have covered so far applies to healthy adults in general, but there are specific groups for whom caffeine's impact on sleep is even more significant. And if you are in one of these groups, or if you care for someone who is, this section is especially for you. Let's start with adolescents. A 2022 observational study by Lunsford Avery and colleagues followed 98 teenagers between the ages of 11 and 17, using at-home EEG devices to measure their actual sleep patterns over 7 consecutive nights. The findings were concerning. Afternoon and evening caffeine was associated with reduced total sleep time, lower sleep efficiency, less REM sleep, and longer time to fall asleep. And here is the part that I find especially troubling. The teenagers who slept worse consumed more caffeine the next day, and more caffeine led to worse sleep the following night. It became a self-reinforcing cycle, one that has real implications for developing brains and bodies. And this is on top of an existing biological challenge. Adolescents are already predisposed to later sleep timing, a genuine circadian shift that happens during puberty. Adding caffeine to that equation makes a hard situation significantly harder. Now, for adults, not everyone responds to caffeine the same way, and genetics is a big reason why. A gene called CYP1A2 controls how efficiently your liver breaks down caffeine. Some people, fast metabolizers, clear it quickly. Others, slow metabolizers, carry it in their system for much longer. You probably know someone like this. The person who drinks a double espresso after dinner and falls asleep with no problem. If you have ever wondered how that is possible, that is likely CYP1A2 at work. And if you are on the other end of the spectrum, even an early afternoon coffee may be affecting your midnight sleep. So, what does all of this mean in practice? Based on the best available research, here is what sleep scientists and clinicians currently recommend. I am going to give you 5 specific, actionable guidelines. Number 1. Stop caffeine at least 8 to 9 hours before your target bedtime. If you are aiming for a 10 p.m. bedtime, your last cup of the day should be by 1 or 2 in the afternoon. This is not a preference. This is what the meta-analysis data support. Number 2. Higher doses require a longer lead time. If you are regularly consuming 400 milligrams or more in a day, consider a 12-hour caffeine-free window before sleep, not 8 hours. Number 3. Do not trust how you feel as your only measure. We covered why that is unreliable. If you genuinely want to know what caffeine is doing to your sleep, track it objectively, with a wearable or a sleep diary, for at least 2 weeks. Number 4. Know your personal sensitivity. If you are an older adult, your caffeine metabolism is likely slower than it was at 30. If you are an adolescent or a slow metabolizer, you may need to cut off earlier than the general guidelines suggest. Number 5. Watch your total daily intake, not just timing. Caffeine stacks. 3 moderate doses throughout the day can be as disruptive as 1 large dose in the afternoon, Total load matters. Caffeine is one of the most widely used substances in the world. For most healthy adults, in moderate amounts, it is safe. But its relationship with sleep is more complex and more lasting than most people ever appreciate. The research is consistent. Caffeine reduces total sleep time, suppresses deep sleep, increases fragmentation, delays melatonin, and shifts your circadian clock, all in ways you often cannot feel. If you have been waking up tired despite a full night in bed, your afternoon coffee routine deserves a closer look. The fix might be simpler than you think, and far more powerful. Thank you for spending this time with CareThrive. If this video was useful to you, please share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe for more evidence-based health education, and visit us at carethrive.org for free resources, articles, and guides. Take care of yourself. You are worth it.